Welcome back. You're watching World Talks. I'm Klaudia Czerwińska. As we mentioned here on TVP World many times before, October 26th Georgian presidential election returned the ruling Georgian Dream party for another term in office, but the vote has been dodged by allegations of widespread fraud and Russian interference. Recently, as the Georgian Dream's party win was certified, the leader of the Gakharia For Georgia party called for foreign ambassadors to not attend the first session of the parliament, which is set to take place today. Joining me now to discuss the political and social turmoil in Georgia, I'm joined by Alex Crevaux-Asatiani, Director for Foreign Affairs at the United National Movement, Georgia. Welcome to the program. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you for covering this.
So the inaugural session of the parliament was set to begin on Monday at 8 a.m. For the first time ever, the foreign ambassadors accredited in Georgia were actually told not to come. They were not invited to the session. And we also heard from Georgia's Ministry of Internal Affairs warning people who wanted to restrict access to the houses of parliament not to take that, as there could be legal repercussions. What do you make of this situation where, according to President Salome Zoubarashvili, who does not recognize the result of the recent election, this is an infringement upon the rights of people to protest?
Right now, Georgia just went through a coup d'etat. And I say this with full responsibility of the term. The parliament, the de facto parliament, has officially convened, opened its session to its 11th convocation. However, this is a parliament that is now recognized by the president of the country, by every opposition party, by civil society, and by the entire international community. And the reason why we say it is a coup d'etat is because it is in open violation of the Georgian constitution. There's currently a constitutional lawsuit in Georgia which is questioning the legitimacy of the election and the legitimacy of the mandates of all 150 MPs that were supposedly elected on October 26th. The Georgian law is clear. As long as that kind of lawsuit questioning the legitimacy of any mandate is being considered by the courts, the parliament shall not convene. And yet they forced the parliament into session. And now we're dealing with a so-called new parliament and an open violation of the constitution. It's a dire situation for Georgia. We're in the middle of a coup and the world is watching. The reason why the ambassadors were not invited was not as much as an attack on in the international community, but rather as a safeguard against what was expected, which was that 99% of ambassadors accredited in Georgia would not have appeared in parliament because they do not recognize this parliament. And only a handful of ambassadors, such as Belarus, Hungary, Azerbaijan, Armenia, or any other authoritarian representatives would have attended. That's why this happened. Mm-hmm. We're in the middle of a coup.
You said that you're in the middle of a coup. You said that the world is watching. Definitely Russia is watching closely the situation unraveling in Tbilisi and across the country. So where do we go from now? What would have to happen for things to move one way or the other? And most importantly, would Russia actually get involved? If things escalate within the country, would Russia actually want to step in?
Okay, so first of all, what the international community and the free world is doing right now is a good first step. Isolating Georgian Dream, isolating Bidzina Ivanishvili, who is a Russian oligarch who controls the Georgian Dream ruling party, isolating him is the best thing one can do right now. First of all, by not recognizing this government, it is taking the right step. However, there's a lot more that needs to be done. That should have happened a long time ago. That should have happened 4 years ago when it was still a lot more powerful of a tool. But now it should still happen even though it's delayed. I'm talking about sanctions. I'm talking about targeting the billions of dollars of crypto investments that Bidzina Ivanishvili holds. I'm talking about making sure that his money is impacted because that's the only thing he cares about. If you act enough against his funds, or if you give him an incentive, he'll do what's necessary and he'll leave power. That's what needs to happen right now. Now, as for Russia, I think it's pretty simple. Russia is forced to take troops for North Korea as cannon fodder to fight in Ukraine because it doesn't have the resources left to conduct its invasion of Ukraine. That means that it doesn't have enough energy, enough appetite to get involved in Georgia. What we need to show is that we're not afraid. We're willing to defend our democracy, and the world should stand beside us and behind us to make sure that our national security is protected.
Considering that Georgian Dream, whether we like it or not, has been put into office, securing another term, how do you think that the political landscape is going to change in Georgia? And what's the future of the country, especially now that you said that the first step that the West is taking is by removing itself from any sort of a working relationship with the Georgian Dream?
Right. So first of all, we should expect that the democratic backsliding, which started months ago, if not years ago, will only get worse and worse. I'll remind everyone that the leader of my political party, who's been a very close friend of Poland for years, former President Mikhail Saakashvili, is in prison today, and he's only going to continue being in prison as long as Georgian Dream stays in power. He will be joined in prison by many other political opponents. My party has had hundreds of its members arrested or violently assaulted over the last few months, and the same goes for other opposition parties. We can expect to see more of that. Then we can also expect an economic crisis to set in, because we're going to see a lot of international sanctions. We already have more than 100 Georgian officials that have been sanctioned. We can expect our central bank to be sanctioned as well, especially for its role in helping Russia evading sanctions. And the difference between Georgia and, let's say, Belarus or Russia, who also have been sanctioned, is that Georgia doesn't have any domestic industry it can rely on to at least soften the blow for a little bit. It doesn't have any of that. The economy will certainly be majorly impacted, if not.
So the seismic impact is going to be felt across the country,
with a lot more other very negative things that we can expect very soon.
And how do you think that this crisis could potentially affect the region, affect the neighboring countries, affect places like Azerbaijan, Armenia, Turkey? What could potentially happen in the neighborhood?
I mean, one thing, I think Azerbaijan will maybe be satisfied with what's happening, because what we're dealing with here in Georgia is basically what the whole world is dealing with, which is a battle between autocracies and freedom-loving people. And for Azerbaijan to have another authoritarian state as its neighbor in the South Caucasus, with who we can make deals one-on-one with a leader instead of a whole democratic system of diplomatic institutions, I think Azerbaijan will be happy with what's happening. And that speaks volumes as to how bad the situation is for Georgia. When it comes to other major actors, especially the European Union, NATO, and Turkey is a member of NATO. Let's never forget that. I don't think they'll be happy with the kind of instability that we are expected to see now. Now, the one thing that we must all understand is that Georgia right now is led by a pro-Russian de facto government. However, Russia doesn't really need a Georgia that is completely isolated. And neither does Turkey, neither does Armenia, neither does anyone else in the region. The reason why is because Georgia is necessary for these actors for bad reasons, but Georgia is necessary as a tool of sanctions evasion. If Georgia becomes internationally isolated, which is what we're looking at, then Georgia loses a lot of its strategic value. It
holds less value for Russia in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it will backfire. It will backfire on Georgian Dream itself, and it will backfire on Russia itself.
How long do you think this is going to take, and what kind of a finale do you foresee for Georgia? Where do we go from here now, considering the coup that you mentioned and the unrest that we can all see and we're reporting about here on TVP World?
Well, I mean, right now the next step is we're waiting for the Constitutional Court to make its decision, which, you know, we can always hope that someone in the Constitutional Court will decide to rule the right way. After that, if the Georgian Dream government is still in power, we'll take it to Strasbourg. But I think we can expect a lot stronger reactions from the West once Donald Trump is inaugurated as president. Donald Trump is someone that had invested a lot of political resources on Georgia over the years. When he was president the first time, I'm talking about sending in American-made javelin missiles to Georgia, promoting Georgia's NATO integration at the time, encouraging Georgia to fight off against Chinese influence. All of that was basically completely canceled over the last 4 years. I think Donald Trump will see everything that's happened. We'll see the betrayal that happened against his policies, and I think we'll react accordingly. So I think we're talking about a more long-term battle, maybe several months. But even if more than that, at the end of the day, the Georgian people have never tired of from a fight. We dealt for 70 years with the Soviet occupation, and we were one of the first ones after our Baltic brothers to escape from that, and we were one of the first ones to really, take a hammer to the foundations of the KGB back then. So we're not afraid of a fight. We're not afraid of a long-term fight either. But I think we can expect the political crisis to last for a few more months.
Thank you so much, Alex Crevaux-Asatiani, Director for Foreign Affairs at the United National Movement, Georgia. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
And so this would be all for now here on World Talks, but please do stay tuned as it's almost time for some of the latest news from Diana Skaya.